Evolution Security Podcast.
Welcome to the show this week. I got Eric and Aaron here with me. How you guys doing?
Doing great, guys. And it's great to be hanging out with you guys as always.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I was looking forward to hanging out with you guys because I have had a stressful week. My brain is fried from being buried in other people's millions in thousands and thousands of lines of spreadsheets. So I am glad to be here.
Nice. Well, we got a treat for you guys this week. This is normally where I say, hey, we've got this wonderful guest. No guest. We're just going to wrap, man. This is something that we initially, when we started the show, wanted to do, maybe 1 out of 4 shows, and we're going to try to do a little more of this. The fact of the matter is we've just had a really good response rate on some really high caliber guests, which if you listen to the show, So, we're going to try and get you just a little bit of what we're about and what we think about what's going on and, just some, hey, how you doing? And which is really cool because this is also an opportunity for, like Aaron said, we just get to hang out because we don't get to do this very often.
Yeah, people have to understand that the three of us are really, really good friends. Of course, my brother, but through this venture, we have a lot of fun together. And so anytime we can get here and see each other over the internet and virtually hang out, it's just a blast.
Well, and we also have some folks that write us and say, hey, we like the host-only content, and they want to hear more of it. And so, yeah, I mean, it's certainly something we want to deliver, and it's something fun,
Yeah.
So,
excellent.
Yeah.
Nice. Right on. Well, no, it is very comforting to be able to do this and have some of this camaraderie in somewhat trying times because as if you look around, the world's kind of a weird spot right now. I think you guys are experiencing a little more normalcy out where you're at than I am over here on the left coast. But
kind of, sort of, man. We're forced to wear our masks, and you got a bunch of true believers around here. I mean, again, I want to repeat. I believe that there is some legitimacy. People are getting sick. But I don't see it being what it's been hyped up to be, and frankly, that's just in my opinion a tool used against the population to institute a little more control. And I saw a piece on CNN that said, "Hey, this is the new normal. You guys should embrace your pal the mask." And I'm paraphrasing, but. It was just this kind of newspeak version of hey, get ready to wear this mask for quite a long time. So it's like, man, come on.
Yeah, I don't really foresee myself wearing 2 masks.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. We were kind of talking before the show. It's like, yeah, that's what they're talking about. They want to start having us wear 2 or more masks.
I've even heard 3. Now I don't know if that was someone joking, but I don't listen to the news a whole lot because I get pretty ticked off. So I just kind of check in every now and then.
Sometimes I carry 2 guns, and on rare occasions I'll carry 3, and that's I feel that's adequate compensation.
Man, you sound like Cecil Birch. Have you heard his loadout? I think he carries like 6 guns and 5 knives.
Man!
Frankly, I was just with Cecil at the Rangemaster instructor course, and we didn't really talk about gear. But I didn't know that, honestly.
Sounds like his pants would be falling off.
Man, I'm hoping that we get some training opportunities with Cecil coming up.
Well,
that would be cool. Anyway,
I think
more to come.
Yeah.
More to come.
Okay. Well, you want to talk about Origin a little bit?
Oh, sure, because we do support and believe in what they do. And it's interesting because a friend of mine who's actually, he's done some training with us and he's actually hanging with me at the moment. My friend Izzy was just talking to me today about looking Peter up on, his podcast and looking into some of the stuff that he's about. And he's like, that is a blue collar dude. And he is, man. And it's all about putting people to work and producing a product here in the States that can't be rivaled. I mean, no import product exceeds or even comes close to matching the gis, compression gear, and even the supplements that they make, And I'm actually drinking a Dak Savage Go as we record here, and I wore my spats today working out. We were doing some knee work, some squats, and some jump rope and stuff. And even though I'm not wearing them under my gi at the moment because we still can't roll, I know the just stability that it gives the outside of my muscles and that little bit of grip makes a huge difference when I'm doing things. So I love wearing them. Some people are like, make a little fun and like, why are you wearing the little panties there? But it's like, yeah. And I do wear shorts over them. I do not do the moose knuckle that some of the guys do. I like to shame those guys. It's like, come on, bro. Nobody wants to see that. But no, it is when I'm doing those deep knee bends, and it's nice just to have that additional support. So, and in a U.S. made product that was made here from fabric that was made here, odds are that was made on a loom that's older than me. I don't know which loom they're actually using that for, but it is some pretty cool stuff and just top quality product. And if you want 10% off of that product, just go in to checkout and type EvoSec 10 at checkout and you get 10% off your order.
Hey, and real quick, I wanted to say I've had some issues lately. I'll just lay it out here, reaching close to 50 here. You always have these weird things that you hear about. Man, I've been having real bad heartburn lately. I mean, bad. And so I can't drink coffee. I can't even drink tea. So I talked to you guys. I think, Brian, you suggested that I get some of the Jocko Discipline Go, the tablets that have quite a bit of caffeine in them, and they've got all kinds of other stuff, vitamin B12 and several other things. I've been taking these a handful of, throughout the day, and I'm telling you, it's been keeping me awake. I feel like I'm drinking coffee, so pretty dang cool.
Right. And it's a natural caffeine source too. It's not the garbage anhydrous pharmaceutical stuff.
Yeah, it's not Nodos.
Right.
So yeah.
Hey guys, I got a story about taking Nodos when I was a lot younger. I was driving a freight truck when I was in college, and I probably was out partying the night before, no doubt, and and I had to get to work the next day, and man, I was so worn the heck out. Coffee wasn't doing it, so I went and grabbed a couple of Nodos. I'd already been on coffee, and man, that stuff had me screwed up the rest of the day, man. You're not kidding, man. That pharmaceutical caffeine will screw you up.
Yeah, no good, man. But I'm glad that that's working for you, Aaron. And I'm glad you brought it up because we hadn't chatted about that yet. And that's exactly what happened. You were like, hey, do you guys know a supplement or a good source? Because I can't drink coffee. And I was like, dude, I know the best source.
Yeah,
I got you.
Awesome. I'm digging it. And I bought a couple of cases of the, I'm going to get it wrong. Sour apple sniper, and then the afterburner orange. I had to spit that out.
Nailed
guys.
it.
Sorry.
You got it right.
Yeah, man, I've got a couple of cases in there, and my wife's drinking it too. So, man, we're going on and on about that stuff, but it is good stuff, good gear and good supplements, man.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think one of our other associates, friends that we've had on the show, has a new association with Tenacor. Is that right, Eric?
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. It just makes me think, even though we get a minor discount, and Jeff hooks us up every now and then, I'm thinking, man, now there's this new ShivWorks version of the Velo coming out, and I think it looks awesome. As Craig stated in the video announcing the holster, it's sexy gray. I think it's sexy dark gray is what he said. And you know, Craig and Jeff have been friends for a real long time, and you know, Craig has provided some input with Jeff, and they're producing a ShivWorks version of the Velo, which you guys might recall from ECQC. You know, Craig doesn't like the regular clips. You know, he's concerned about, you know, them coming off during a gun grappling situation, and so they've designed some new loop clips, which I'm really pumped about. I definitely am going to be getting. There's no reason I shouldn't have a second Velo. Well, actually, that'd be my third one, because that could just be a second 17-19 version. So I'm gonna have to get me one, but it looks real nice, and I like the clips. I think it's going to be a good selling product. What did you guys think of it?
No, looks really cool, man.
Oh yeah,
I'm stoked to see him supporting that.
And it's got the ShivWorks Cobra. You know, looks really cool on it. And everybody in the audience, if you want one of those new Velos, the ShivWorks version, when it does come out, make sure that you enter EvoSec at checkout for 10% off.
Awesome. Well, and we can talk about it another time when we have a little more time. But man, I got my new Cartoon 3, and man, guys, I think I like it more than my Velo. I'll have to be honest. I'm running back and forth with them, but it's just a cool design. It's just slightly different in the way he has that camming bar, and you can change the sizes, etc. It's a killer design.
Very cool. I have not deployed mine yet.
Lame.
I have pulled it out of the bag and I've played with it. That's bad on me. I run some long days. I haven't found time to actually fit it and play with it. But I was happy to see that you were playing with it, and you'd already done a Velcro mod on the back, so you can add or remove a bump if you want, which makes it a little more like the Velo. But that just lends to how universal and flexible that format is, man. That it's, if you were going to get one holster, it's the one to get.
Oh yeah. And you know, I like it without a wedge too. And of course that's when it's great for hip carry. Cause when I'm around the house here, you know, I work from home now, of course, thanks to COVID. And I will often put whatever pistol I'm running on my hip. And so I put that Velcro on here and put a good foam wedge on there, and I really like the ability to change it up. So, but yeah, it's a great holster, and Brian was making fun of me. He goes, "Must be nice to work at home," because I think the UPS guy dropped it off, and I think I have my gun in it in about 3 minutes.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember Brian shooting that over the shot across the bow. That was pretty funny. I definitely laughed out loud.
All right. So I guess what else we have going on here tonight, guys? What do you want to chat about?
Well, man, I think you got a little bit prepared on this new, let's just call it silly bill. It's not really silly in the sense that it's definitely scary. Mm-hmm. But I definitely, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you know, of course, we know that we have an astute audience, and a lot of our audience members are going to know plenty about this. But those that don't, we're talking about H.R. 127, a bill that was introduced January 4th by The gift that keeps on giving, Sheila Jackson Lee out of Texas. And I'll be honest, this bill is so over the top, I really don't know what to think about it. It's so over the top, it's almost like a practical joke. Now, I don't want to make light of it because it's a real bill, but do you guys know what I'm saying? I mean, it's so...
Yeah, absolutely. Aaron, it is the most draconian gun control bill that I think has ever bbeen introduced. Maybe there's been others that I'm just not tracking, but taking it this far, full firearms registration, a database that even the public can view. And I know that you're going to hit on the high points, but just thinking about a registration alone, we know what happens with registrations. It ends up being a confiscation later on down the road, and then licensing. So essentially, the Second Amendment's a right. It's not a privilege. But in this bill, our Second Amendment rights will be a privilege that has to be renewed every several years, right?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Were you going to say something, Brian?
Well, it is fortunate that we have a system of checks and balances, because there are a lot of hoops this would have to go through before it got anywhere. Mm-hmm. And my hope is that this never makes it past committee. And, we're going to do a little call to action later. But, if you know for a fact that when this winds up in committee, one of your representatives is on that committee, that's going to be the biggest deal. I mean, everybody can write in, but, when it's in committee, that's the time to get it stopped. And if you're local or you have somebody that's on that committee, I don't know that it's even been assigned to committee yet, but it'd be vital for those people to reach out, because there'll be time for public comment and whatnot.
Sure. I think more than anything, guys, this is illustrative of what anti-gun people that, of course, they like to use the word, the phrase, it's a gun safety law, which, they always have to use up words and then move on to the next one when the connotations get too negative. But more than anything, this is just kind of a cautionary tale about what a lot of them think about gun owners and the citizens that believe in this right to keep and bear arms. So, again, we understand the legislative process, so we're not concerned that this is just going to shoot through, right to the president's desk. But, let's just talk about a few things here. So, again, this is H.R. 127, and the act, I'm going to read from this bill. I printed it out here, the whole thing. So, this act, it says, may be cited as the Sabika Sheikh Firearm Licensing and Registration Act. Now, just to give a little bit of background, that Sabika Sheikh is a Pakistani Muslim girl that was an exchange student that was 1 out of 10 students killed at the Santa Fe High School in Texas in 2018. So, of course, Sheila Jackson Lee or the people that helped her write this are being a little political even with the name there. But, the main premise here, it starts out, the United States Code is amended by adding at the end following: licensing of a firearm and ammunition possession, registration of firearms. The Attorney General, through the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, shall establish a system for licensing the possession of firearms or ammunition in the United States, and for the registration with the Bureau of each firearm present in the United States. That's pretty serious. I mean, right there, it's just like, wow, throwing it all in there. But now I'm just going to kind of go over some high points here. Eric mentioned a couple of them, but the main premise, right, is that you have to ask for a license that needs to be renewed. periodically. And the number one thing, you have to go through a background check, your regular NICS check. No surprise there. But here's where it starts getting a little interesting. You need to undergo a psychological evaluation. And then you have to complete some training, which has to exceed 24 hours. In addition to the regular license, guys, get this, there is a separate, quote, military-style weapons license. So reading this, I'm no lawyer, but I don't know if this means, I'm going to assume you would have to have your regular firearms license for, your hunting rifle and your pistol, etc., and then you've got to have a separate military-style weapons license, which is pretty interesting. But now,
and Aaron, it's been a little while since I've read the bill. It's been maybe a week or so, maybe less. But isn't the license $800?
No, we'll get to that.
That may be the insurance.
Yep, it is the insurance. I'll touch on that. But
yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I'm jumping the gun. Sorry,
no, that's fine. I don't see anything about a fee on the. Maybe there is a fee. Forgive me, guys. Like I said, I've read this bill, but it's fairly long, so I haven't memorized all of it. So, but here's one of the real interesting things, guys. It requires a database. Okay, circling back. In a nutshell, if you own a firearm, like many of us in America own several firearms, you'll have to register each and every one of those, send a lot of information about them, of course, the make, model, serial number, all that jazz, and where you're located, all that information. And once this is enacted, once it goes into effect, you will have, so millions and millions and millions of guns. We'll have to send that information in within 3 months, 90 days. So I would love to see how that happens. Again, that kind of gives me the hint that maybe this is a practical joke. But in all that, it's going to require the Attorney General to establish a database of all these firearms that are registered. And it states here, the Attorney General shall make the contents of the database accessible to, listen to this, all members of the public, and that's a quote, all federal, state, and local law enforcement authorities, all branches of the United States Armed Forces, and all state and local governments as defined by the Bureau. But, what really sticks out to me, right, is the accessible to all members of the public. My wife made a point about this, and it kind of reminds me of like those databases where you can look around your neighborhood to see if there's a sexual predator in your neighborhood.
Yep, I thought about that too, and
just find that really odd. And also, I guess. Hopefully your address wouldn't be on there, but is your address going to be on there? Because, I guess if there's a database that all members of the public need to be able to access, why would they need to access it other than seeing who has guns, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so the thugs out there that want to steal some guns, they have a shopping list.
Exactly,
and possibly exactly where those firearms are going to be. I think that is unbelievable.
So let's go back to one of the main aspects of this, right? We get the criminal background check and the training. Those would kind of be par for the course, other than the fact this is for licensing. But so now we get to the psychological evaluation. This will be conducted by a licensed psychologist approved by the Attorney General, and part of this process, they will interview your spouse, and if you have a former spouse, they will interview that former spouse, any two individuals in your house or associates of course, to further determine the state of mind, emotional, and rational stability of the individual in relation to firearms. So, and guys, here are some things that you can be denied when it comes to the psychological aspect. So, you'll be denied any individual that has been hospitalized with mental illness, which would include depression, addiction to controlled substances, and alcohol. So that's not everything on that list, but that's just a handful that would knock out millions and millions of people, right?
Which is what they want.
Yep. I mean, to me, what this all kind of comes down to is that they aren't going after criminals. What they're doing here is putting the onus on the citizen that wants to own a firearm for whatever reason, right? The onus is on them to prove to the federal government that they are not a criminal and that they are not dangerous to the public. You aren't presumed innocent, right? To even be able to have your right protected by the Constitution. But those are some key aspects that we don't need to go too far into the weeds. But Eric, you did mention one thing. There is a requirement with your license that you have a yearly liability insurance plan that costs $800. So I guess the federal government would get into the liability insurance business and charge you $800 a year for that. In addition to your licensing and all the other stuff. I mean, just kind of gets down to harassment of the armed citizen.
Well, and how many, let's just bring up a point of people that may be in, that they're not well off. They're living paycheck to paycheck. And let's say they're in the inner city where those folks need guns more than anybody else. Yet they would have to have an $800 policy to own. Let's just bring out a cheaper firearm, a $350 pistol. That to me is another portion that tells us that their intention is to reduce firearms ownership in many ways. I mean, think about the soldiers with PTSD that are otherwise perfectly functional people that have served their country, and because they've been in some rough times downrange, they'll be barred from owning a firearm. Where's where is the justice in that, to use one of their terms? So yeah, it is a scary bill.
One thing that we have to go over are some of the penalties here, guys. Okay, so if you own a firearm, if you possess a firearm without this license, it says that you shall be fined not less than $75,000 or not more than $150,000, imprisoned not less than 15 years and not more than 25. So that's possessing of
What? So how many times do people commit manslaughter or murder and serve less than 15 years?
Oh yeah. And again, it's like, man, what are we looking at here? Audience out there, you guys, I don't mean to laugh at this, but you just really don't know what to think about it. So yeah, minimum 15 years, guys, for not having this license and possessing a firearm at the same time. Now, here's the real nice one, guys. If you transfer a firearm or ammunition to a person that also does not have a license, and that person commits a crime or is involved in an unintentional shooting or commits suicide, the transfer shall be fined not less than $100,000 or not more than $150,000, imprisoned not less than 25 years, and no more than 40 years. How's that sound, guys?
Man.
Because somebody else does something with something that you were, quote unquote, licensed for.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, so that's, I think people get the point that this is so over the top. It isn't going to go anywhere. But what if some of this stuff gets into a bill that gets passed, right? That's what
Which may also be their intention, to throw something.
Ask for the moon.
Yep, ask for the moon, and then if they can get, a fourth of it, or maybe even a tenth of it, and they'll be happy.
Yeah,
so that is definitely the concern.
That psychological interview. That's I've been involved with several scenarios that sound exactly like the process you described. One was a phone interview for a guy who was actually applying to work at a nuclear facility. And I get that. That makes sense. Yeah. And the other was for a guy, real good friend of mine, who was becoming an Oregon State Patrol. And they wanted, a character reference. And they interviewed his family. They interviewed, members of his associates, and that makes sense to me. The sheer amount of, just resources and money required to do what they're describing there is just, I can't even fathom it. And one of the things that struck me, Aaron, is why would the military need to know what guns I own?
Yeah, I saw that too, man.
Wait a minute. Why would that even be necessary to be on their radar? I'm like, they're not.
Hey, Brian, they're going to suspend posse comitatus, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's crazy. Like I said, I just wanted to kind of touch on this because it was, again, Miss Jackson Lee, the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah. And like we said, if you live in a district or an area where you have the ability to, do public comment or anything, we encourage you to do it. We fully foresee this being shot down in blazes, but it needs to not get amended and leave, because that can happen. It can be amended and leave committee with they could gut some of the, some of it and still a bunch of it stick, but we really don't foresee that happening. However, it's just something to be aware of, that this is stuff that's actually happening, and the fact that they can actually introduce legislation that astoundingly far-reaching is disturbing, and that is part of the process, to be able to introduce what you want. But man, this is not good for anyone.
All right, guys, enough of this HR 127. I'm going to pass it on to you, Eric.
Well, guys, I think it's time to celebrate the American Rifleman's heritage and move into celebrating the AR-15. Does that sound cool?
Ooh, that sounds like a celebration.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to kind of a little bit of commentary. Well before the birth of our nation, during the pre-revolutionary time frame, the heritage of the American Rifleman was crucial to the colonies. It was the grit, bravery, marksmanship, and the musket wielded by patriots at Lexington and Concord, April 19th of 1775, that kicked off the American Revolution. Without this heritage of the rifleman, it is likely that our founding fathers would have not defeated the British Army, which at the time was the most powerful military in the world. The principle of every able-bodied person being a rifleman was deeply embedded in early America. With all the focus on personal self-defense, pistol, and combatives that, is typically our focus in EvoSec, we still want to preach the efficacy of being a rifle marksman, a rifleman. we're going to continue to make the big focus on what we normally do, which is the more personal protection. But I think we want to continue to push the efficacy of the rifle as a self-defense tool. So we're going to start really hitting on it harder. Don't you guys think?
For sure.
Yeah, sounds wonderful.
And I'd like to make a comparison. Like the musket of our forefathers, we're going to celebrate the AR-15 because I believe, and I think you guys agree, that it's analogous to the modern musket. Don't you guys think?
Oh yeah, it is the modern defensive rifle of our time.
Yeah, they are in the contemporary time periods. They are technological equivalents for sure.
And they are the most popular rifle owned in the United States. I mean, there are millions of them. And I'll just add this: in all reality, the gun control that really hit in the '90s, '94 crime bill, and the assault weapons ban, if use their misnomer, I laugh at it sometimes because they created more AR-15 owners through the years of trying to take them away, that I think their unintended consequence has definitely blown up in their faces. So
the fact is, guys, that the more common a rifle or pistol or any firearm is, the harder it is under the Constitution to ban.
Most assuredly. And guys, if I can make a point real quick for audience members that may be new shooters and that may be looking for an outlet to become a rifleman, I just kind of like to highlight the Project Appleseed. So anybody out in their audience, I'll put a link to the organization in the show notes. But I think they're doing a great job of teaching not only to become a rifleman, but also teaching about our heritage, which is deeply needed in our nation. And heck, you can do most of their programs with a slightly modified Ruger 1022. So, most of their programs, they do 25 meters and in for their basic program. And then like if you set up a nice AR-15 or a 30 caliber, let's say an M1 Garand, and they do a known distance 500 meters course too. So, which is known as the Rifleman's Quarter Mile. So I think that's pretty cool. So I want to highlight a patriotic organization like Project Appleseed.
That's great.
Well, with that said, do we want to talk about our favorite and primary AR-15s? Aaron, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, I thought it'd be fun to get into kind of almost a mind-numbing detail. Not really, but just quite a bit of detail on our favorite rifles, because this is a good time to celebrate. Let's talk about our favorite rifles. Well, now Brian's probably going to poke fun at me like he always does about all my BCM gear. But so I'm going to try not to say BCM too much, but just to be flat honest, probably 80% of my rifle is BCM. So, well, let's just start out with the center of the rifle, right, which is the barrel. It's a BCM 14.5 cold hammer forged mid-length gas system with the standard GI profile. And that has that Mod 1 comp pinned, of course, since it's a 14.5. That's a good point. Maybe some audience members think, no, that's below 16 inches, right? Well, when you have a special comp pinned to the barrel, it takes it past that 16-inch length, and you're good to go. And now my lower is just your standard BCM lower and BCM upper receiver. Got my bolt carrier group from them too when I got my entire upper from them. And now my trigger, I've got an ALG, Eric, and I think you might have one of those too. It's
oh yeah,
Amy Geisley. She kind of set up a little side business to kind of soup up some GI triggers, and so I have one of those. It's a pretty nice trigger. I'll list some accessories here. I've got the BCM Mod Zero stock that they came out with several years ago, and of course their pistol grip. Now for my sling, I use a 2-point sling designed by Frank Proctor that's got the cool feature of being mounted with 550 paracord, which, man, makes that real light and real easy to connect to your rifle. And I have an in-force weapon-mounted light on an angled thorntail. Actually, that was some design work with Travis Haley. He helped them design that specific light that is a momentary only. Eric, you remember that darkness vehicle class we took from Travis Haley, and he kept getting on to you for leaving your light on?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And that actually changed my thought process on momentary only switches for darn sure.
Yeah, so I dig the momentary switch on that, but
well, and under pressure, unfortunately, heck, dry firing or just training at the range, no big deal. I had good control over not clicking in all the way on the light, because at that point I was sold on simplicity. And yeah, when you're under pressure, like some of the drills we were doing in that class, peeling out of vehicles and running a gun, and your adrenaline takes over. So yeah, there were many times we're doing a drill and, man, my damn lights, and trying to click it off, that was a no-go.
Yeah. Well, so also on there, I've got that, what's it called? The KAG kinesthetic angle grip that does help to get that stock hard up against your shoulder. Real cool design there. And I've got the 13-inch KMR key mod rail. Man, love those rails. But yeah, it's got the old school now, right? Isn't key mod kind of yesterday's news now? You got to have an M-lock these days.
Well, BCM's not. BCM really geared themselves towards key mod because M-lock is a Magpul licensed mounting system. Yep. So that's why they steered away from them. And I believe they're manufacturing both platforms now.
Oh, yeah. I've got it.
Yeah, they definitely are.
Yeah, that means they're paying a licensing fee to Magpul, which I'm very happy about.
you may recall, Brian, that you helping me build my 300 Blackout pistol. It's a right. It's a BCM, yet it's
M-lock.
M-lock.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my pistol that we built last year, I believe it's got the M-lock rail on it too from BCM. Well, last but not least, let's talk optics. It, of course, these days, you're nobody unless you've got a LPVO, right, guys?
Oh yeah.
I guess I'm nobody.
So I've
so far.
Yeah.
It's time to redeem yourself, Eric.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I've got the Vortex Viper PST Gen 2 1-6. Now, audience members out there, you got to know that, of course, Vortex's Razor line is their top-of-the-line gear, but this particular scope actually is very similar to the Razor version. Lots of the same features, so nice tidbit there. Of course, I have that in the MRAD reticle. I'm doing my best to try and get America to change over to the metric system by my reticle choice. And of course, it's got about a 1 MOA. Everybody's got to remember this too when your LPVOs can have a nice dot in the middle. And mine's just a standard crosshair with MRAD hashes and then a 1 MOA dot in the middle. And thanks to Brian, last but not least, I've got that mounted with the Midwest Industries 20 MOA angled mount, kind of rounding it all off there. Oh, yeah. Thought we would talk about our ammo choices too, guys. For indoors, I chose some non-barrier blind. Oh, let me digress a bit. Anyone that's interested in trying to be kind of look for a one-stop shop bit of info about quality ammunition, There's a white paper, I think we've talked about it before, that was compiled of a lot of information of Dr. Gary Roberts, one of the foremost ballistics experts in the country. He has a nice list of cartridges and projectiles to choose, and I've gotten everything I have off of that list. But so my indoors rounds, that are non-barrier blind, there's some cartridges that run the Sierra Match King 69 grain bullet, and then
Nice.
and then if I need to engage any toilet paper zombies, under these the COVID lockdowns, I've got some barrier blind cartridges that are those Federal Fusion that have the 62 grain bonded soft point. So those are my favorite 2 rounds. I've got a decent stock of those and good to go. That's my rig. Yeah, if I've got a handful, but that one's my favorite one.
So, Aaron, I guess I'll go next because, frankly, man, you've done most of the description for me. You and I, of course, the audience knows we're twins. And so I only have a few minor differences in mine. Mine is a BCM complete. However, one of the big differences is I do not have a BCM rail. I actually have a Noveske NSR, so the Noveske skinny rail. I did kind of build this rifle. It was a complete upper, but then I changed out the barrel. A few other things, changed the rail. But I am also running the same grip that you're running, along with the same muzzle device. Now, the one big difference is I am running the Streamlight ProTac HLX. It's 1,000 lumen light with a pressure switch that I have mounted on top of the rifle behind where my thumb normally goes. I've found that I really like running my lights like that. So it's momentary only, and then in the back of the switch, it'll have a clicky style on and off switch as well. So that light runs really well, and it runs dual fuel. So you can run regular 1, 2, 3 batteries, 2 of them, or the 18650, I think I have that battery right, as the rechargeable. So I really like that.
Yep, you're correct. That's the dual fuel. Yep.
Nice. Thank you, Brian, for the affirmative on that. I am not running an LPVO, but I will stop for one split second just to have a shout out to that Phoenix police officer. I know we talked about this earlier, but what'd you guys think of that awesome shot that Phoenix police officer made with a rifle at probably about 30 yards is what it looks like, and when he's getting out of the vehicle and actually using his forward grip to push against the door of the patrol vehicle, and then you see him dial up his LPVO and just right shortly after presses that shot off, the bad guy drops, and they save the baby, which was his son, and he had a pistol pointed to his son's head. So that officer did an incredible job. And I'll also give a shout out to Rich Brown and Mike Seeklander, because I heard that story on their show. Did you guys see that video?
Yes, I did review that after you mentioned it, and it's impressive.
Yeah, and that's another aspect, right? I wouldn't want to dive too far into this because we've got gear to talk about, but this is one of the reasons why we would want something as effective as one of these carbines. Is, it's very unlikely that a situation like that would face us. But what if we had a situation like that, or one of our audience members had a situation and they needed to take that, quote, hostage shot with a pistol when they when they could have one of these carbines on them. It's very important. You aren't forced to have this rifle, but what if you want the choice, right? It's the choice. So I digress.
And flat out, it is arguably one of the most effective defensive tools. I mean, anybody can easily shoot an AR, low recoil. They're very accurate, much easier to shoot than a pistol. And then obviously the cartridge itself, it's not a large rifle caliber, but let's just say that it's got 3 times the power of any normal pistol round. So
that's a good rule of thumb.
Yeah. So the continuity of fire, we're not going to call them what the left calls them. They are standard capacity, 30 or 20 round magazines, which really helps with, if there's a situation where you need more rounds than 10. So just putting that out there, which it does happen. So
Eric, I guess you were talking about your optic. We kind of stopped at your optic.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to jump right back into it. So I do not have an LPVO. I'm still running. I wouldn't call it old school at all, but I'm running a Aimpoint T1. Unfortunately, I got this before they had the 2 MOA dot, so I'm still irritated about that. So I've got a 4 MOA dot, but that optic, the reason I still will use that optic on other rifles, even when I get an LPVO for this rifle, it's amazing battery power. You can leave this on for close to 5 years on a medium power. It's amazing, the battery power. So, but I've got an extra battery in my pistol grip, which is a Magpul. I've got Magpul furniture on the rear of the rifle. So, Magpul makes some good stuff.
Definitely.
So they do. They really do.
And I am running the ALG ACT, which is the Advanced Combat Trigger. Now, I'll tell a little bit about myself. I love match grade triggers, but in my primary fighting carbine, I still like having the reliability of GI based triggers, and the ACT is that. It just simply has nickel boron and Teflon or nickel Teflon differential coating on the trigger parts that make it a smoother, more hardened trigger. And with the Teflon boron kind of has a lubricant effect to it. So yeah, it's still a GI trigger, but man, it's way smoother and breaks way cleaner. Don't you think, Aaron?
Oh, certainly. Now, along those lines, I did shoot my buddy's LaRue. Brian, you told me what that was, that LaRue.
It's the MBT,
man.
The Mary Bravo tank.
Holy cow, man! I was jealous, man. I was jealous, but then I kind of pulled back and thought, I too still kind of like my little bit heavier GI trigger, but in one of my rifles, I'm gonna have to get one of those sweet triggers one of these days.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do one at some point myself with and that trigger may be one of the ones I'm looking at. What I will say is I'm putting this rifle down so I can kind of carry on about my ammunition. I'm a big fan of the Federal Tactical Premium 64 grain high shock. It's just a good medium weight round that you can shoot decently at distance. And also has really good terminal performance, which I believe is one of the rounds that Dr. Roberts, or a similar round that Dr. Roberts has in his white paper. So that is my main round that I have in all my primary magazines. So I am also go ahead, Aaron.
Are they bonded so they're barrier blind?
Yes, yeah. They are. Mm-hmm. And so I also, the audience and you guys know, I'm also a huge fan of the 77 grain Black Hills Mark 262 Mod 1 clone. I do feel like that has a role for sure out the distance. I mean, the soldiers downrange using the Mark 262 are getting amazing kills out beyond 500-600 meters with that cartridge. It does excellent in comparison to your normal 5.56 rounds. I also go ahead.
Sorry, Eric. By chance, was that ammunition that J.P. Donnell was talking about on that interview with him?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, it brings 5.56 up a big notch.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, because it is a OTM open tip match that is very accurate, and that heavier 77 grain, it has that medium size weight bullet that does get out there at distance a lot better with really good terminal performance beyond that normal 5.56 range. So I think that does it for mine. What do you got, Brian?
Well, I actually admit I scampered off and grabbed it while you were talking. So
Cool. Did that sound?
Yeah, this is this. I think it's even got that. When I do it just right, you might be able to pick it up. Nah, it didn't ring. It's got that AAC ring on it because it's got the flash suppressor adapter on there. The one everybody likes to call the tuning fork. But what I'm rocking, because I had the opportunity when I was licensed to obtain a few of these at a discount because of the way my license structure was. My kind of primary home weapon is a SBR, and so the fact that I have an 11.5-inch barrel is totally fine with a stock assembly. But the heart of my unit is a Mega Arms MAB, which is their billet lower. So it's a Mega Arms billet lower with a factory complete, which may surprise you guys because I build most everything. This particular weapon has a factory PWS MK111 11.5-inch upper. That is a piston upper. Reason for that is this is a suppressed weapon. It happens to have an AAC 5.56 suppressor. It is the now I've lost it. It is the Mini 4. I had to actually look at it because I forgot. It's a little about 5-inch 5.56 can. It's not as quiet as some of their larger cans, but it's enough to really take the damaging noise out of it. And if you ever did have to discharge an AR inside a house or inside a hallway, that's enough for permanent hearing damage. So it's not something I recommend.
No.
But the fact that it's piston driven keeps that chamber quite a bit cleaner than a DI gun, and that's also got a M-LOK rail on it, sporting a Surefire, the 600 DF as well, that 1500 lumen dual fuel. That is a really hot light. Some could argue too hot for in the house, and it's probably true, but it is the light that I choose to put on there because it's a real weapon light.
Well, you could blind them and not have to shoot them.
Well, that's true. That's true. Hopefully, you don't blind yourself in the same process. But
yeah, I will say, Brian, not to cut you off. Yeah, this 1,000 lumen light, the ProTac that I just mentioned earlier, it is bright in the house for sure, man.
Oh,
if you blast it at a wall, yeah, you're blinding yourself.
Oh yeah. Raptor charging handle. That's Radian makes that. Those are standard issue on these PWS. Very nice because it's ambi, but the latches aren't too big, so they don't really get in your way. And gas diversion from the piston is not a big deal. Where in a DI gun suppressed, you get a lot of gas in your face unless you're using a specialized charging handle, and we don't have to worry about that because it is piston. I'm rocking Magpul furniture as well. I've got the SL carbine stock. I really like those because there's bow springs inside the stock that keep them tight against the receiver extension. So also known as the buffer tube, but it's technically a receiver extension. No rattle in the stock whatsoever. And then I'm rocking the K2 grip, which I love that because it's a little bit smaller and a little bit more vertical. And when you're in a compressed configuration, when you might be in a clearing situation, it's much easier to keep control of the weapon than a standard sweep of a normal AR grip. And I think your BCMs are similar, where they're more vertical, so they actually change the angle of your
definitely.
wrist a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
ambi safety, which is always nice, just having two sides. And I've kind of put that on everything, and I've trained myself to use my thumb and my index finger at the same time to disengage and engage the safety. Two reasons. I'm pushing or pulling from both sides, and my finger cannot be on the trigger if I'm using it to engage and disengage the safety. So that's just a personal training tip.
Yeah, that's a real good point, Brian. And if I can interject something I have instituted in my shooting, I even put the safety on when I'm changing mags. There's just too much that can go wrong when you got all this gear on, and an AR-15 trigger is going to go off a lot easier with any small item getting in that trigger guard. So, and of course, I got that from Pat McNamara, so that's nothing that I came up with by any stretch.
No, and it is a good thing that we point out, like when we train or do any instruction with carbine, movement, magazine change, reset between strings, safety's on.
Comes off your cheek, comes off your cheek, and it goes on, right?
Yeah. Yep. There you go. Yeah, that safety should be on until you're on target, for sure. So I actually have I would say, well, maybe it's the husband, right? I don't know. I was going to say big brother. I actually have the Geisley SSAE, which is the 2-stage enhanced, and I personally run the JP springs on that because it lightens it up just a touch over the factory springs. Questionable whether that's a good idea or not. And I don't run the lightest one. I run like the 1 pound down, but questionable whether you want to do that in a self-defense weapon, because it does reduce the power of the hammer because you're running a reduced spring to get that lightness out. But I've never had a misfire with it with the ammunition I'm using. And that's one thing, we're having this little ammunition discussion. Don't go buy a box of hollow points or a box of soft points or a box of hunting ammo and say, that's my self-defense ammo, and just load it up and leave it in the mag. Verify, and this is true of pistols too. Verify that stuff works in your gun. I cannot tell you the number of times I've seen somebody grab something and it does not function because they didn't test fire the ammunition that they bought for self-defense in their firearm. And there's a big difference. The shape of the bullet, the ogive of the actual bullet itself can change the way they chamber. There's all kinds of things that can cause them to not function properly. So in this particular weapon at the moment, I've got the SIG Elite Performance ammunition. I'm a fan of the ones you mentioned. I'm a fan of Hornady Tap. For this application, I'm a fan of anything that is nickel or black nickel coated, although it is not necessary by any means. You don't have to do this. Because I'm shooting suppressed, because there is more gas coming back down the barrel when I shoot this firearm, I choose to use something that gives me just an edge on if the chamber is dirty or has any, flash in it. So that nickel case is a good thing.
Man, that's a real good point, Brian. That's
and it's not necessary.
Always learn talking to you about this stuff. That's great, man.
It's one extra step. And one thing I like about the SIG ammunition, I haven't actually shot a ton of it. I have test fired it, obviously, and it performs well. It's a solid copper bullet. So it's going to give you barrier performance. It's going to give you it's going to give you repeatable expansion. It is not just going to, splatter. Some of the like tap rounds, they definitely, when they hit, they're going to have a lot of break apart, which is instant shock transfer. That's great. Depends on your application, but the velocity that these bullets move at, the expansion is going to happen. And if you're shooting, a tipped or a light construction bullet, it's really going to come apart. And that's great on a coyote. That may not be great on a larger adversary. But of course, I'm feeding them out of the Lancer L5 AWM mags.
Nice.
I am a huge fan of the Lancers, man. The metal feed lips, the translucent body, you can see if you've got rounds in there. I shoot mag pulls all the time too, but the Lancers for critical application, that's my choice.
Well, and Brian, if I can interject, man, I love my Lancer mags that you hooked me up with for my 300. I love those mags, and and I have decided to keep those Lancers, at least that particular color, only using in my 300 just as another measure of me not cramming that 300 in my 5.56. Oops. I don't want to have a skinny 30 caliber bullet coming out.
No, definitely. If you have multiple calibers in ARs, for sure. It's a good side note too. Make a visual difference in your magazines. I had somebody at my private range last week. He was shooting his 300 and it went boom, 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 click. And he racked the gun and he pops out a 223. And I'm like, bro, come on. You loaded that mag. Clearly you were watching TV or not paying attention. So, that's the situation that would be less dangerous. Fortunately, it didn't ignite at all.
The opposite spectrum, yeah.
Right, because it's going to throw in the hot dog down the hallway scenario. But I
like that.
You're welcome. The opposite. I have had a friend who's a manufacturer test firing, and they mixed up an upper. It wasn't that they mixed up the mag. They put a test upper in the wrong pile, and they were testing 300 uppers, and a 5.56 upper got in the pile.
Ooh.
And it blew the side out of the upper receiver, blew the mag out the bottom. Shrapnel went left and right. Fortunately, none of it went in his face. Did some injury to his hand, no bone or muscle injury, but he had some lacerations and didn't need any stitches. But he got hurt, and that was not cool. They actually saw cut that barrel with a bandsaw, and the bullet was like 4 inches long, jammed halfway down the barrel. Yeah, and it's not the first one I've seen either. It was impressive, but it's like, it's funny now, but man, I wouldn't want to be there. But so we'll finish off with the optic. This particular application, because it's intended for short to medium range, is wearing a Trigicon MRO, and it happens to have Psalm 1828 embossed on the side of it, which
nice.
I don't mind sharing. You, Lord, keep my lamp burning. My God turns my darkness into light. And cool. I love
get some.
I love Trigicons having that on there, man.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that our troops have Trigicons with that on there.
Very cool.
In countries where they would be very unhappy about that. So no, it's a great unit. And another, just a side note, this is meant to be a short to medium range unit. I do not recommend piston-driven ARs to anyone trying to build an accurate AR. They are not as accurate. This gun holds about 2 minutes at 100 yards. I can definitely do sub 1 minute at 50 yards. I've got stuff that'll hold a half minute at 100 yards that is DI, direct impingement. So piston isn't better. It's different. And this has an application. It's short, it's suppressed, and it's overall just a few inches shorter than a 16-inch carbine. So with the suppressor. So it really is a nicely balanced weapon. So there's mine.
Well, guys, that's awesome, Brian. I love hearing you talk about your stuff, because your knowledge just make me feel like my stuff's made out of some steel, aluminum, and plastic.
Yeah, and hearing Brian, and here I am a prior Army soldier, and I know my gear pretty well, but you guys just articulated a lot better than I, and I just feel like I'm the gorilla with the rifle. so especially hearing Brian talk. So man, I always learn a lot.
Reminds you of the opening of 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah, exactly.
You're the guy. You're the chimp with the bone.
Awesome.
But I can use it.
Well, hey guys,
Let me say something real quick,
Okay.
Aaron, if that's okay.
Of
if
course.
I can interject something, I would be remiss because I'm a stickler, at least with myself, and recommending this to others, is having iron sights, even with a sight that probably doesn't need them. With my aim point, I still have backup iron sights, and I wanted to mention those as well because I have them on all my rifles, including my pistols. I'm running Troys on these, so just wanted to mention that I'm a big fan of backup sights.
yeah, those Troys
No.
are nice.
Good call. And the ones that I've been liking are the Defiance. They're very similar to the Magpul Pro. They do come in poly and steel in that smaller form factor. I'm not running irons on this one currently, although I have some that could be bolted on there. But, again, don't even the, $80, $90 Magpul M-Bus, they're great. And they've improved, they're on like the second or third, version of those. What's really interesting is when we're doing a lot of test firing and building of uppers when we were active in the business, it came to a point where we would mount those and they were nearly zeroed out of the package. Whatever they've done, they figured out how to build it and put it in the package centered up. And it's impressive because the front and the rear sight don't even come off, they're not even the same package. Yet we'd throw them on there and they would be near dead on all the time. And I suppose a little of that may lean to the fact that we were building, quality equipment.
Yeah,
I think they just figured out what they were doing.
And if I can also interject one other thing, goodness gracious, if I can interject something else about iron sights, I also picked up a pair of the Wilson Combat flip up sights. They're a little bit different style looking, but they're inexpensive. I wish I could remember how much I paid for them, but they're half the price of my Troys. They're on my 300 pistol build, and I actually am falling in love with those sights. They work real nice. So if folks out there don't want to spend a lot on the Magpul Pros or the Troys, check out the Wilson Combat flip-up sights. They're a really good choice.
Another quick tip, just because we're on it. Most, not all, but most of the flip-up sights use a standard front sight post.
Yep.
Most of those sights, you can just buy like a Trijicon Tritium front sight post.
Absolutely.
For $25. And you can have an illuminated front sight post. You're kind of stuck in the rear, but even an illuminated front is very nice for finding in those low light conditions.
I'm really glad you mentioned that. I'm running a XS stripe with a tritium insert in mine.
Yep.
See, you're
you
reminding me everything I should be mentioning. Yeah, I like to have the tritium inserts at least in my front sight. That's a good point, buddy.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, hey guys,
Good stuff.
I was curious if you guys know this. Do you guys know what the weight is on both your rigs you're talking about there?
Oh, it's heavy.
Yeah, because I weighed mine. Mine comes out at 9.4 pounds, and which isn't terrible, but people have to know that have not gone to the LPVOs. Your mount and your glass there will add some weight to it,
Oh yeah, with the can and the light and the optic on mine, and pistons are not lighter either. Pistons
that's
typically
true.
way
Are
more
heavier, a little heavier.
Yeah, so I'm right in there in that 9 pound range. Yeah, I'm just over 9 pounds. I'm not. I'm well under 10, but yeah, I'm not sub 9. And I have built. Minus optic, minus light. I have built some 5.5 pound rifles using very thin pencil barrels, and they're not as accurate. And it's cool. But I do not mind the weight of this weapon for what it is.
Yeah.
For
I
what
like
it
to hear
performs and does.
Some folks call that comforting. having a little bit more heft. And I'll say Aaron, the last time I weighed mine, as it is current, I think it was running in just over 8.
Yeah.
No, actually, I think it was like 7.9 or something like that. It's still pretty light.
That sounds about right. Yeah. 7.5, 7.75, pretty common for a built assembly. That 7+ range, because these were originally designed to be a 7-pound rifle. That was the original intent. And you can get them under 7 pounds. If you're really
talking about
crazy, but
you're talking about just the original.
Yeah, they were designed to be a 7-pound rifle.
The Armalite 15.
Yeah, right.
I like to bring that up every chance I get. It is not assault rifle 15.
No.
Sheila Jackson Lee.
Yeah. Well, guys, one more thing too. I wanted to say too, because I was thinking about it. Out of my several BCM builds, this is the main one that I use. I have only had one malfunction in one of those, and it was because I was doing a roll in the dirt class and got a pebble stuck in the chamber. But this particular rifle that I'm talking about here, I have had 0 malfunctions in it. So pretty reliable weapon there.
Well, I would like to make the point, because you bring it up, Aaron, and Brian bringing up the DI versus piston. A quality DI, they freaking work.
Yeah.
It is
absolutely.
There is no longer the myth behind AR-15s, DI especially running poorly, is just a myth now. That there's a lot of stuff that kind of archives from when it was first produced in Vietnam era and maybe a little after, but a quality AR-15, they are as reliable. They're as reliable as a Glock. I'll just say it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not to say, if you go find the cheapest components you can get and build an imbalanced gas system and use some cheap parts, you're going to have troubles. But as you mentioned, a quality build will have no functionality issues whatsoever. But always test your subject ammo.
Yeah. Good point.
Absolutely. Guys, I'd like to say we're a little long in the tooth this evening. I honestly would like to say that I love this discussion. I want to reemphasize what we're really talking about, and that's celebrating the American Rifleman and what we believe is the modern musket. And we want to encourage our audience members that if you don't own an AR, as best you can, go out and get one. It is certainly important for us to try to instill that rifleman's heritage. And, I would say that, and you guys would probably agree, we have had a very good, I would say, resurgence in the Second Amendment in the last couple of decades. So, I feel like we've got a strong Second Amendment culture. I also believe that we still should preach the rifleman's heritage, and that's something that I'd like to really start hitting on a little more in EvoSec. Not that we're going away from what our real focus is, but I love emphasizing the rifleman. What are your guys' thoughts?
I agree.
Man, sounds great. And tell you what, Eric, that sounds like a good way to shut us down for the evening, man. Excellent thoughts, excellent things that you said there, man. I appreciated it. It honestly kind of pumps me up about, embracing that heritage and that tradition, and one aspect of being an American with my musket or my AR-15.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely good. Well said as well, buddy.
All right. Well, I think that is a good closing point, and I think we'll go ahead and wrap her out, and we'll see you next time.
You guys be blessed, man. Awesome time tonight.
Oh, yeah. Blast, guys. Have a good one.
Take care.
Okay.